Hey gang, it's Adam here. Sorry about the cancellation today. I feel like it was the best move. I received a bunch of emails from folks that knew they couldn't make it out, and I thought the same thing. A couple of the emails were talking about how they, didn't want to miss class, was struggling to make that decision, and in the end had to choose the right thing for them. And I couldn't help but just wanted to point out that there's an opportunity to be curious and open as per beginner's mind and just notice that line of thinking. The ideas that we ponder, the way we feel, the way our body talks to us, taking all that information under advisement, noticing it, and then processing and coming up with an opportunity to make a new choice. So today was a great example when we kind of are struggling with a commitment or struggling with knowing we need to be somewhere, but also knowing there's something else that's important as well. So part of our mindfulness is that we're practicing awareness and becoming aware of all these nuances of our body talk, our feelings, our thoughts, and then noticing them as they are, that we are not them. As the observer, we can process it and make a new choice. And today the choice was that we all stay home and that we be safe. So in that, I wanted to review our content for today a little bit, just one component of it. I'm going to send you the meditations from today in a separate email, and but I wanted to go over this one little bit. So remember, we've got our stress bucket, right? Our stress or energy bucket. And our stress or energy bucket is always a certain size. We can talk about how to grow that another time. But remember, there's about a bunch of stuff that exists in our stress bucket. Basically, once we wake up, it's automatically there. It's part of us. And we outlined it as a bit of, like, for example, genetics, personality, or past hurts, those types of things. And then our lifestyle, the choices we make every day, the way our life goes, it's what fills up the rest of the bucket. And these little red lines indicate, as we fill up throughout the day, we can get varying degrees of tension or filledness. We lose energy, we don't have any energy, and we are unable to adapt further to new stresses. So as we get fuller and fuller, the bucket will eventually pour over. And it's hard to hold everything that we might have to deal with every day. And so eventually the body will produce symptoms, or the body-mind, really. It could show up as behavioral, it could show up as emotional, it could show up as energetic, or it might show up as physical aches and pains or hints like headaches or stomach troubles or that type of thing. So at the bottom, though, we have our coping mechanisms. So the bucket will drain, and we have the positive and negative coping mechanisms. So it might be things like exercise. Or on this side, there might be avoidance techniques and ways that we tend to avoid stress to help us feel better, but in the short term, they don't work very well, or in the long term, they don't work very well. So we call that a recycled stressor. It gets poured back into the bucket, and it fills us up a little quicker. We all know that feeling as sort of becoming sick and tired or losing our ability to cope any further. I wanted to look at today, though, is what are these? What are these? And so over here, we've got another little mind map that says, what's filling my bucket? So I'm going to go around and I'm going to fill out the mind map, but consider it for yourself. What fills your bucket? What are some of the past hurts that are specific for you? What are some of the personality traits that you may recognize in yourself that may keep your bucket a little fuller than others? Or what are some of the genetic pieces that are a reality for you? So let's write that on here, genetics. In genetics, we might be looking at certain genes that are present that make pain a bit more vulnerable, or anxiety has been found to be linked to genetics, or there may be some health conditions that are genetic in nature that we can't do anything about specifically, especially in the short term. And they're pre-existing, they exist within us already, and that limits our capacity to a degree depending on how we approach things. So what about also this, like a social environment? This represents things like our job, our social network, our place in the world. So for example, if our job allows us to have the perception of control or lack of control, but in the short term, we can't exactly change all of that just within our own selves. We can't change that immediately, but it has a strong impact on us. What about our family environment? So our family environment, again, something we can change over the long term, but in the short term, it can provide stressors. We can wake up and go to sleep day in, day out with a family type stress on our mind. Whether it's partner stress or child stress or caring for an older parent type stress, it's part of our network, our DNA, it's part of our social network that we have taken on, and it doesn't change immediately. Past hurts. So we may have an injury that we carry into each day, or we may carry with us an emotional, a mental, or spiritual hurts that limit us or that we bring into each day. So consider those for yourself, maybe even making specific notes in the document that I gave you that looks like this. Now, there's life stressors. Life stressors looks like, what do we choose to eat? What do we choose? What do we choose for movement or exercise? How do we spend our free time? How do we? What type of things do we do when we are working or aren't working? How do we handle our life stressors? What do we choose to put in our bucket? And then the other one might be personality. Certain personality traits may be more susceptible to stress than others. And that isn't overtly changeable in the short term. So something that came up recently in the clinic was just the idea of type A or type B personality. A type A personality is a bit more go, 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 a little firmer, a little harder. Some other popular personality traits that you might think of and that may be aware of would be introvert or extrovert. So those personality traits will have an effect on how we adapt to stress every day. And they're generally part of us, and you wake up with them every morning. So what do we call this? Awareness, attitude. That is awareness and attitude. So the approach that we take, the viewpoint that we have on our day, that we have on the stressors of our lives, the viewpoint we take when we engage all these other pieces like that. So that's something that can also fill up our bucket. And we might even say work or financial stress, that kind of thing. What's in your bucket? So what I really want you to think about when we make this list, and when you fill it in here, you can just copy it as it is. What I would have you do more so, though, is as you fill in these spots, maybe make some specific notes that seem pertinent to you. So if you're going around here and you're saying genetics, and maybe you're aware of a certain genetics or a familial trait, like something that runs in the family that might just be there at the moment, or a social scenario that's going on for you, maybe something important is happening or something important in your family, make a note of that. Past hurts, are there any significant past hurts that you're aware of that you might bring in, just to bring gentle awareness to it? Life stressors, the way we eat, the way we move, the way we process. Personality traits, introvert, extrovert, type A, type B, attachment things. We can investigate that further. I just want to get you thinking about it. Awareness and attitude, work stress. Here's where we're heading with that. We can only control so many of these things. So take a second and think about which of these you can control. We can't control our genetics. In the short term, we can't control our social environment. In the short term, we can't control our family environment. We can't control past hurts. They've already happened. That's over. It's in the past. Life stressors. Can we control our activities? Can we control how we fill our bucket every day? In a lot of ways, we can. Can we control our personality? There's a lot of science on that. A lot of it is believed to be born into us and or shaped, especially by this point in our lives. We can learn about it. So we can't really control our personality, but what we can control, the other thing on this list we can control is our awareness, our attitude. The commodity that we've been talking about that regarding this and what it turns into is we can control our choices. Our awareness and our attitudes gives us an opportunity to have a choice. We can't control all of these things, but we can have an awareness towards them. We can see them, we can process them, and we can make new choices about how we respond to them over time. These two things are where we can put our focus right here. So yes, we might come with a certain amount of fullness, and there are ways of adapting to that and changing that we can get into in greater depth somewhere else. But what I want you to understand today is that our choices and our lifestyle choices are really the two that we can work on. Sitting with sometimes the discomfort of these other ones, it's more the attitude that we bring to them that's going to make a difference. It's the way in which we sit with them, it's the way we see them and put them into perspective that makes the difference. Even the stress that we feel when we struggle with these or suffer around these can fill the bucket if we're using it as a negative adaptation. But if we use it as a positive way of coping, we can help empty that bucket and we can live very well with some of the pieces of us that are already there. That idea of learning what we can work with and learning what we have to just have and carry. So consider that, take a look at that document, and take care of yourself today.